Hello everyone, thank you for visiting my channel. Today we're gonna do a little bit different. Is how to build a PC in point of view. So I have a new computer that I want to build. All the links will be in the description below. So first off, you gotta get your Phillips, and these are the things that you would need. And let's try to remove the plate over here, the glass plate. So we do it in each side, and you have to be very careful with this tempered glass. It could sometimes, depends on your case that you purchase, it's gonna fall off. So I previously installed a solid state drive right on the case, and I also put in a new fan in there because the case came in with three fans pre-installed. So I wanted to have a cooler temperature in the case. So let's inspect the back side of the panel of this PC, and you remove it just like this, and it comes in with an RGB controller. It's actually ARGB, and it's pretty nice that this case came with it. And it also comes in with a couple more cords in there for ARGB that you can customize and probably plug it into your motherboard. And it comes in with a mounting plate for your solid state drive that you can put in the back, to save space. So looking over in this side, how I put in that extra fan is I have to remove the front panel, and you have to go in the bottom. It's good to start in the bottom part of the front panel, just pull it carefully, and then you slide your finger across the line of that front panel. Same thing on the other side, you do the same thing, you just pry it off like carefully. There you go, and then you slide your finger across that crack until you reach the top. And then you see this little plastic thing where you take out, and I put this extra fan in there in the middle. So it's pretty nice to have an extra fan in there. And the motherboard that I'm actually gonna be getting in here is I'll show in a little bit, but from the PC that I have is that this CPU tends to go hot. So here's what I have: Tough Gaming X570 Plus, and do a little bit of unboxing here. This is the Wi-Fi antenna, and then this is the motherboard, and it looks very nice and comes with instructions, and it comes in with two SATA cable and some nice stickers right here, and a backside panel. So that's pretty cool. And there's an M2 screw for your new M2 hard drive that you're going to be putting in solid state drive. So you'll see it later. So removing it to the anti-static bag, put them aside. So here's so we can see what we're working on. And I have this mounting plate for AIO. Since I wanted to have cooler AIO, I'm gonna use this one. So I took my Phillips and just unscrewed the original mounting plate that came in with a motherboard. In case you guys were wondering what kind of CPU I'm using, I'm gonna be using a Ryzen 7 3700X. It's very new to me. I never worked with Ryzen. Intel is really good too. They're very stable, but I just want to go the Ryzen side. So typically when you get an AIO, it comes in with this little back sticker. I think it's some kind of a heat protection or electrical protection. So you put this in the back after you remove the original back plate for the motherboard. Just stick it in there like so. And then you grab one of these back plate. This is both compatible for Intel and AMD. So the other one is AMD, the other is Intel, but I'm going to use the AMD one. And you have to look where the bump is, and the bump is where you want to make contact into the motherboard. So then I put this little screws in here, make sure it locks into place, and it comes in with a tiny plastic washer that you plug it in so they do stay in place, and you rotate that screw to make sure that they're locked. As you can see how half moon looking screws they are. So you just rotate it until bloop, there you go. And then you put in this little plastic washer, make sure it's all the way nice down and tight over there, and do the same thing for the other two screws over here. There you go. Finish it up nice tight. Oh, there you go. And now we're gonna mount this in the back of the motherboard. Make sure these bumps are hitting those pads that I put in earlier. There we go. And make sure they're all nicely lined up. And then you see this little plastic thing. This is what holds your screw in place. So I'm dropping it like this. Make sure that they stop right in the beginning, so then when you push it in, it's tighter. So this one is like pretty loose, so what you do is you flip it and then you put it in, then you push it down. So that's when you'll know when it's like, did I have it in the right orientation or not. And there you have it. So now you have the mounted the back plate for the AIO, which we will focus on later. Probably the last thing that we're going to be doing for this motherboard. So now here is the SSD. I never worked with the M2 SSD before, so this is like kind of my first time, but you basically plug it in like a laptop. So the motherboard comes in originally with this really tiny screw, so that's what you have to kind of set it up, mount that little screw right here. There you go. You just hand tighten it. You don't want to over tighten it with any tools, just hand tighten it. You don't want to crack the motherboard. There you go. And then do you see this little contact? So you put that in that, I believe, PCI slot. So, and you slide it in an angle, just like the laptop. So just push it in until it plugs, as you can see right here. There you go. See how they're lopsided like that? Now what you do is you get a smaller Phillips, because you're going to be dealing with a smaller screw, and then you basically slide this guy in and try to screw them like that. Like I said, don't over tighten them, just tight enough where it sits still. And there you go. That's my first M2 SSD. So now we're gonna work in a memory stick. I have a Vulcan T4's 3200 megahertz 16 gigabyte kit, and make sure that this little crack over here lines up to the motherboard. You don't want to reverse them. So I only have 4 slots in here. It's a dual channel. So typically AMD motherboards, they tend to have the second slot from the CPU. That's the channel that you want to start in with, unless you want to fill up the whole thing. It appears that this a slot doesn't have only has one side that can be flipped open. I'm so used to the motherboard that has 2 flip on the side where you open them up, but looks like this one's only one, so this is pretty new to me. But it's the same concept. You just line them up, make sure you get, see, that's not the right way, so you flip it and then you line them up, and then you go ahead and plug it in until you hear a click. So make sure that you plug it on both sides of the memory stick until you hear a click, like so. Alright, so that's one, and now we're gonna go for the second one, and you skip that one slot because that's the channel that you want it to be in. Otherwise your computer won't boot up. So yep, here you go, line them up like so, and then you do practically the same thing. And obviously reference your motherboard instruction book to find out which slot you need to plug it in, but typically that's for AMD motherboards, that's where they start. So here we're gonna hook up a power supply, and there's an exhaust fan on on the case there's an exhaust in the bottom, so we're gonna flip it, and this power supply I have is AresGame, and it looks very good, 850 watts with gold rating, and obviously I want to flip it because I want the air to go down, and it's fully modular, which is very nice, and we're gonna go ahead and plug it in that way. I know the name is upside down, but that's how you want the air to exhaust out of. So here we go. I like these little flathead hexagonal screws, so you're gonna use that. As you can see, I'm gonna screw this one part. I tend to screw things in star pattern, even though it's not a star pattern, it's like 4-corner, but I do it across the way. So put this thing aside, and tighten them up afterwards once everything's settled in. There we go, perfect. Alright, so the next thing is we're gonna put the back plate for the motherboard. So here we are, a nice tough gaming backplate, like a small unboxing, or more likely like unplasticking. And then we line them up to see how they form in. Typically you just like push that thing in, and it's very universal. A lot of motherboards come in with it. Same thing, they make it standard for all PC bare bones. So I just push it in to hear a click, like so. Make sure you orient them the right way. Here we go. Alright, that looks good. Alright, so now what we're looking at here is the screws mounting for the barebone PC, so we can mount the motherboard in. The PC desktop comes in with these screws that you can hand tight or tool tight in. So these are the areas that I put in all those mounting screws, and like I said, I already mounted the solid state drives ahead of time, and let's look at the back and see how everything looks. And these are the screws of the mounting the hard drive. I'm going to mount this one solid state drive on this plate that we have here that came in with it. So I'm gonna use this as my main bootable drive. I'm gonna install Windows in this later on. So I just screw this guy up here, line them up. You don't want to over tighten it, you just want things to be just tight enough. You don't want to crack through the thread of the screws or the solid state drive. And you hang this guy over here, grab one of the screws, probably the hexagonal screws like this one over here, and you just tighten it up, and so it stays still. Alright, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab this motherboard and mount it here. And as you can see, I've already mounted those screws in there, and they have this little screw in here. What you do is you line the back panel up to that, and then you screw these in here. So the motherboard comes in with that screws in all those corners, so I'll show you how I'll attach to the motherboard. So I look in the back to make sure they're all lined up and oriented correctly. Take one of the screws here and you screw it right here. You don't want to over tighten it, like I said. You don't want to crack the motherboard, so just do all these corners first and then make your way down right on the middle of the motherboard, like so. If you have a lot of screws, use them all up, but if you're limited, I would advise doing the corners of the motherboard and at least one in the middle. I have plenty of screws, so good. Alright, so now what we're going to do is mount this video card onto the motherboard. So I already pre-planned where I plan to mount this. So I removed the PC back plates over there. You have to remove it ahead of time, and I'm putting in a PCI Express slot, and forgot to remove this locking mechanism back here. So there you go. Alright, so now I'm gonna go grab this and then mount the PCI Express into the motherboard until you hear a click, like so. There you go. Alright, so now that's good. In case you guys wonder, I have an ASRock 580 RX 580 8GB graphic card, and there's plenty of memory on it. So now the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna mount the AIO in here, just kind of see how I could orient the tube. So I'm gonna plan to mount it up over here. And looks like there's plenty of space in the back of the barebone PC. So here we go. So I'll lightly tighten some corner of the radiator here. I'm not gonna tighten it completely. I just wanna screw it in there so it's in place, and then I'll screw the other corners as well as the middle part of the radiator. So here we go, doing this side, the next one, not really tightening everything yet. There you go, and then two more in the middle right here, and then I'm gonna hand tight each and every one of them, and that should be it. And then there's a couple of these are the plugs for the two fans that I have in here. In the meantime, I'm gonna plug this probably up here on the top part of the motherboard, and it has looks like a RGB cord as well. So for now, I'm just gonna put this back here, slide it to the back side for cable management. I'm not gonna plug it in yet. There we go. Yeah, so these for power, and this one is, let's see, this one would be for the back side of the chassis fan, that fan in the back. So I might as well just plug that in. That's where the chassis fan is. There you go, just slide it in. There you go, nice to plug. I'm in the back side of the PC right now, just inspecting all the cords in here. So this ARGB controller in the back, there's two different kind of RGB out there. Actually, I read that there's ARGB and the other one is normal RGB. So I plan to plug this ARGB right in the front panel over here, based on the description on the motherboard. So I'm gonna put this controller right in the front like so, because I like to have a nice clean look. I don't want wires all over the place. And I'm gonna plug this one right here. And this is the ARGB, it's not the RGB. Alright, so it looks like, you know, you match that up. The little arrow should be the one, the ground, I believe. Nothing's supposed to be there. And there you go, it looks pretty good. Alright, the next one is I'm trying to figure out where I'm gonna I think I'm gonna plug these up here. The CPU fan up here. So these two radiator fans, I'm just gonna have it run probably, yeah, just plug it up here, because I have two CPU fans in here. Optional fan, that's what this says in the instruction book. So make sure you reference your manual for the motherboard. Here we go. That's some more cable management. I routed to the back, so it's looking nice and clean, as you can see. I'm just gonna temporarily wrap this so with the metal spring thing like this one over here, temporarily, just so it's nice and neat. And I got some more front panel. So this is a front panel USB 3.0 that I can definitely utilize. So I'm gonna route this cable right here. I think would be where I don't know, it's too much core. I think this is the best one, because if I put it in the first slot over there, that area, there'll be too much bending. So I think there's plenty of space through the area where the solid state drive is. So here you go, you match that plug up, and until you hear a click. Typically you hear a click, but if you don't, as long as it's all the way through, you should be good. Here we go. Alright, you don't really want to bend too much of the wires. You just want just enough slack. You don't want to break the connection. So here it is. The hardest one in the PC building is plugging the front panel power reset button and some light switch, and because they're so tiny that you have to definitely refer to the motherboard. So in this motherboard I have it this location, so I would definitely reference the motherboard manual and look for the negative and the positive. And right now I'm routing it from down here. I already did a couple of them in there, and I'm gonna put in the power switch as well as the LED switch or HD switch. So like I said, refer to your motherboard manual to see where you plug. Sometimes there's like written stuff right on the motherboard, but they're so tiny. So now I'm gonna plug in the HD audio, and what's nice about this Tough Gaming is that I believe this motherboard has a shielded connectors with its own capacitor, so it reduces the static when recording audio, which is super nice. So the HD audio is located back here in this motherboard, so I'm just gonna line them up and plug this one in, and then typically you hear or feel a click that you managed to plug it all the way in. So this is how I route it, so it's nice and clean. There you go, just tuck in more of the cables like so. Here we go, that looks nice and clean. I'm gonna route it right above the power supply right here. Yeah, so right there you go, that looks nice. Alright, so now I'm looking at this fans. Since this very long cable, I'm gonna route it down here. I have two more to plug the fan on the bottom part of the motherboard. So like here, I'll show you guys where. So here we go, there's one here and there's one here. So I'm gonna put them both up there. So because you can definitely power it up right under power supply, but it'll run a full blast. I like to kind of control it through the BIOS or whatever application that I have on the PC. There's a lot of like third-party application that you can control the fans and how fast you want it to be. But yeah, so me, I'm just gonna call it through the BIOS. That's so you can see how fast the fans are running and stuff. But by all means, you can definitely plug this thing in right onto the power supply. It's optional. It should have some kind of a converter, a multi-converter or some sort. So, but yeah, I like mine to plug it in here, and I advise you guys doing it that way. Go good. All right, so next one is the ATX 24-pin power for the motherboard. So it should, yeah, so right now I'm pointing it in here is a 24-pin. It'll definitely mark it right there. See, there you go, you can see it. Every modular motherboard will tell you where the 24-pin power is for the ATX. So there you go, you just plug that thing in until you hear a click, and it should lock into place. I'm gonna do that right now. It's hard to do one hand only, so I have to do two hands. Here we go, and I'm gonna route this right here in the front, because that's where the typical ATX 24 pin on the motherboard, like here, see? There you go. You make sure you have that lever on that side, it's in corrected orientation, and you just forcefully plug it all the way in until you hear a click, or it's just like put firmly into place. There you go, and then tuck in a little bit of that. There you go. Alright, now I'm gonna go take a look at the extra CPU power. Some motherboard comes in with it, either an 8-pin or basically it's like the same thing as 24-pin, except it needs extra power. So, and my motherboard requires this. So you have, sometimes you have 16-pin extra, or you can plug in the 12-pin like mine. So mine has that 8-pin in here, and then 4 extra over here. Your motherboard, your power supply should come in with extra cords that's capable, you know, providing it like so. So right now I'm plugging it in here. Possibly I should have plugged this thing in before I put in the AIO, but that's okay. So yeah, I managed to do it. So I'm gonna route this down here to the power supply. So I'm just gonna put that thing out there and try to sneak that top over here like so. There you go, I got that in. Pull it in and do some cable management while you're at it. There you go, get it out of that fan. And like I said, I should have put it in ahead of time before the fan, but that's okay. Like I said, you can make things work. So alright, so now we have one cable that's still dangling, and we're gonna plug that one and route it down here. It'll tell you where the CPU ATX is. You see it in there. There you go, it's written in there so you can see it. I took out that 24 pin for now so you guys can see it. So yeah, so I plugged that one in here, and until you hear a click, there you go, and good. So I got rid of the 24 pin for now, so to get some more space. So we're gonna plug in the GPU PCI Express cord, so to power up our video card. So you plug that thing in here. It says it's marked right on the modular thing, so I'm gonna plug that one in here. I decided to probably put it a little bit closer to me, so I was thinking of putting it all the way back there, but I just want to do it close to me so it's easier access. And that's what I like about these modular power supplies, is you can plug it anywhere as long as you plug it to the right spot. So I'm routing this cord right in the front. So, and as you can see on that video card, there's like a plug there, like an 8-pin plug, the PCI Express, and plug in that power there. If you notice that if you plug in your graphic card and suddenly you power on your computer, let's say you're done and it's not powering up, you don't see any power in the monitor, because most likely your graphic card needs the power. So yeah, so that's there. Now we're gonna mount power and plug in the solid state drive with the SATA cable that's provided by the power supply. They typically come in with a power supply, the SATA power, not the SATA cables. So you plug that power in one of these things. It's clearly marked. So here's what I'm gonna do is since I want to do a couple of cable management, so I'm gonna do it like this. It makes sense. And let me get all these stuff. Plug in that SATA power cable over there. So as you can see, I'll show it to you guys. Here you go. I'm gonna plug it right over there until you hear a click. There you go. And route this cable probably like right back here. Probably would help. Here you go. You have to kind of strategically put certain areas in cable so it's like nice and neat without constricting anything. So there's like a little L shape in a way, so make sure you match that to your SSD solid state drive. There you go. Let's plug that. Boom, there you go. And the other one is this one, so I'm gonna go ahead and plug that downwards like that you see. Make sure that L part is oriented correctly, and boom, there you go. That's pretty nice and neat. And do you have this one dangling here? I'll just, you know, cable manage it like that. So we're good. And the next one is the SATA cable to plug into the motherboard. And this one comes in with a motherboard. Every motherboard comes in with it. One has like an L-shaped SATA. The other one is just a straight through SATA cable. So I'm gonna use these to plug in the mounted solid state drive that it's over here. So there you go. I'm gonna plug them both in there so there you can see that. And we're gonna plug it right in front over here. I believe since using the M2 solid state drive, I think two of them, like here, these two, would be disabled, or the one on the bottom might be disabled. But I believe from my motherboard manual, the top two would be disabled. So I'm using the bottom SATA instead. But from what I also hear, that this specific motherboard won't disable it. But just to make sure, I decided to just plug it into the bottom SATA. If I ever want to expand in storage, I'll go ahead and plug in the other two. But for now, I want to do it right here in the bottom. As you can see, there's like 4 SATA over there, so I decided to plug it into the bottom part of the SATA, because I know this would work for sure. There you go. Now we're gonna go ahead and plug this into the 2 mounted SSD drive in here. I'm just trying to figure out how I'm gonna cable manage it. I want to make it nice and neat, like so. There you go. Alright, and the other one, plug this one in. I'm gonna plug it upwards. Make sure I orient it correctly. There we go. Yeah, there it goes. Like a little, yeah, I think we're good. Alright, now let's see how the front looks. It looks nice and flushed. There we go. Make sure they're all nice and secured. Alright, everything looks pretty good. Yep. Okay, so the next one is I'm gonna plug in this SATA and power as well, but I'm gonna plug this one and right on the bottom part. So it's best to remove the plate and plug it that way instead of trying to figure out how should you plug this thing in. So I plug this one in. Make sure it's correct orientation. There we go. And plug in the SATA cable right here. Then just screw the plate back in. Then now we're gonna go look for the power supply, where to plug this thing in. Pretty much anywhere where it says IDE SATA power over there and the power supply, you can plug it in anywhere there. So that's what's nice about this modular power supply. Alright, so just do a little bit of cable management. So looking at this one to power up the RGB, so I'm going to power it up using the SATA cable dongle with the SATA solid state drive over here. So I'm basically plugging it in there. There you go. Tapping into that power. And for this fan, unfortunately there's no more space to plug in the another fan into the motherboard, so I'm just gonna utilize the power supply to provide that power so that fan would just spin at full speed. Luckily I have this adapter that you see here that I could use. And there we go, plug that in and onto the motherboard. So I'm routing it out down here in the bottom, because I'm gonna plug it right here, because I have like 4 more SATA interface over here, so I'm just gonna do it right here. Here we go. Yep, there you go. And that's the final storage drive that I'm gonna be using. Just gonna do a couple more cable management here. I think that should be good. Alright, so now we're gonna go for the CPU. The CPU that I have is AMD Ryzen 7 3700X. So I hear that this CPU tends to go hot, so I got myself a Hydronaut thermal Grizzly, Hydronaut, not Cryonaut, Hydronaut. And nice thing about this, it comes in with a little spreader and this little toothpaste looking tube. And how I apply the thermal grease here is, I know majority of them, they put them right in the center, but me, I like to spread mine across. That's the best coverage. So I don't like to do the whole, you put it right in the middle and then suddenly once you put in the cooler in there, it doesn't spread out evenly. There you go. Doing it right now. Just gonna, oops. Oh man, I put too much. But that's just perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to spread this thing evenly. So I'm gonna skip some time because this takes time. You have to do it very thin all across the CPU, like so. Alright, going across, try to cover it up. There you go. It looks like it's not a lot, but the more you spread it around, you'll see the kind of coverage that you get out of it. So do some more. Yeah, there's like several, you see a lot of YouTubers or YouTube online, they'll just put a dot right in the middle, or an X all across. I tried doing that before and it doesn't have full coverage. I like the old classic way, back in the 90s era or 2000, the way you're doing it. So this is the best way. So I suggest you guys should do it this way, so you guys won't have any heat problems with the CPU. Because this way, once you know it's covered, you know that's covered, and it'll spread out perfectly. So here we go, I already finished the whole thing up, and that's how it's supposed to look like. Nice and thin. Then there's this lever over here. That's what I like about the AMD motherboard. There's like a little indicator on top left. It's like a little arrow etched into the plastic, and then on the CPU itself you'll see like a little gold arrow right over there, very, very tiny. You'll see it on the naked eye. If you flip it around, there's also an arrow there too. So basically you match that arrow to the arrow of the CPU. So you flip this lever, and then you carefully just slide this CPU right into the socket. Match that arrow where the arrow is pointed at, and then once it sits firmly into place, just try to move it around, make sure that it's on the hole, and then you press this lever down. So, and then you should hear a click once you lever it down. There you go. That's when you'll hear the click. So we're good. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna apply the AIO onto the CPU. So first I need to clean up the copper connector right here, the surface. So I use 70% isopropyl alcohol, just clean it up. You want to get rid of all the grease or fingerprints or dust that's in there. And there we go. And then AIO comes provided with these spring with screw, so you use the screw to tighten up your AIO into the motherboard. So first we're gonna hand tighten it. First I'm gonna have to orient the AIO contact like so, and to me this is the best position for me to position this Enermax AIO right here, because based on a tube, and you put that screw with the springs right onto those screw that we put in earlier. There you go, just align them like that. There you go. Then you just press a little bit onto the middle part of the AIO, and then you just like hand tighten first. There you go, hand tightening them. There you go, so you can see better. Hand tighten the opposite side, almost like a star pattern, but not really. So there you go. Once you hand tighten them, you pick up one of the Phillips and you tighten them completely. Do be careful, you don't want to over tighten it too much or crack the motherboard. As soon as you feel that you reach the moment of tightness, you just stop from there. So this one is the AIO plug, so, and you'll see in the motherboard AIO power, and that's where you plug in the AIO. This will power the pump right on the motherboard at its full speed. So yeah, so we're good. The cable looks nice. And we close this guy up. So that's all my cable management, and tuck in all the wiring and make sure no other wires are touching the metal part of the PC. There you go. And then you apply that screw that was provided to you to close everything up. There you have it. And so far that's how it looks, and I have this little wire in here. This is my temperature reader. It's just a little peripheral that I like to add to see and find out how hot it is inside the case. And I also have an extra USB panel in the back that I can use up. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug that one in. Just a normal USB 2.0. I know the color doesn't match. It's hard to find the right color, but this is just another USB panel from my older PC. I just thought I want to have an extra USB plug, so I'm going to go ahead and attach this one here. Might as well utilize it. And put in the back locking plate. Put that back in. And plug the USB 2.0 into one of the front panel area of your motherboard. There is one available. There should be one available at least. You can refer to your manual of the motherboard. It'll tell you where the USB 2.0 is. And there you have it. Now we put in the tempered glass. Close it up. Yeah, the best way to do it is to lay it down flat like this instead of like standing up. There you go. Tighten everything up, and we should be almost good to go. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna power this thing up, make sure everything lights up, it goes through post and everything like that. And pretty much that's how you build this PC. in fact, after I power this computer up and just stock and everything like that, um, out of the box, the CPU are actually uh, overclocked, so it runs hot, high voltage, and all that kind of stuff. So it's best that you go into BIOS and do some kind of configuration to get the system stable. Don't be scared once your computer blue screens. Uh, I know we all hate that. We think that we're breaking our motherboard and CPU, but that's only a safety measure where it'll just blue screen for you that there's certain hardwares that are not compatible, or you need to make some kind of configuration because too much voltage here and there. So yeah, it needs to do a little bit of, actually if anything, a lot of TLC on this machine. It's not like an Intel platform where you just plug everything up, power it up, everything is stable. If you're going to the AMD route, it is a little bit more daunting, where you have to do a lot of manual configuration and be very patient. So, and eventually you'll be able to get the system up and running. I'm only using this computer just strictly for video editing, photo editing, trying to use 8 core. I'm not trying to overclock it or anything. Maybe a little bit of gaming here and there, but I'm not geared for gaming on this. So, but finally got it stable. Maybe I probably might do another video on how I set up to get it stable, just strictly for what I needed to do. But yeah, so if you guys like this video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe to my channel. Anyways, talk to you guys soon. Later.